Okay, we left off the family of the future figuring out that George made $20 an hour and his slope was 20, and Jane made $40 an hour. Her slope was 40. Now let's look at George's numbers here. George worked for 3 hours and made $60. He worked for zero hours and made $0. We ended up with 60 over 3 when we did our rise over run to end up with 20. Can you see a pattern between these two numbers, the ordered pair of 3 and 60, and the ordered pair of 0 and 0? And how did we find a pattern that we ended up with 60 over 3? How did that work? If you think you know it, if you think you saw the pattern, see if the same pattern works for Jane. These two numbers, she worked 2 hours for $80 and 1 hour for $40. We ended up with 40 over 1. Is there a pattern that you could see that you could figure out by using these pairs of numbers here to also get 40 over 1 without drawing the right triangle and measuring? Well, there is a way, yes, and that's called the slope formulas, using algebra to figure out the slope of a line by using two ordered pairs. And it can be any two ordered pairs. It doesn't matter. If you're careful with your negatives and the adding and subtracting, you will get the same ratio every time. So the slope formula is kind of an advanced way to find slope, and you don't need to draw the lines all the time. So as you go, the slope formula looks like this right here. It's the change in the slope is the rise over run. It's the change in the y-axis divided by the change in the x-axis. And we write that as y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now don't let these little numbers throw you off. All they are for is to keep you in order so you don't go the wrong way. All right, as long as you subtract the y values of the ordered pairs and subtract the x's, you'll get the same ratio, but you have to do it in the same order. So it'll look like this. Here's an example of the ordered pair here is 3, 4, and negative 1 and 3. Okay, now if we did the counting and making the triangle, we had 5/6 is the ordered pair, or 5/6 is the slope. All right. You also want to look at the line first and make sure you know the slope is going up, so it is positive. So when you would insert these numbers, the x value, x1 and y1, that is this ordered pair there. x2, y2 is that ordered pair there. Okay. So you take those numbers, you let these letters be those numbers, and you plug them in, and you end up with 4 minus negative 1. This is 4 minus negative 1 is that 4 minus negative 1. On the graph, it's this 4 minus negative 1. You get 5. 4 minus negative 1 is 5. Then you go 3 minus negative 3, which is 6, and you get the slope of 5/6. The thing to remember is it's always one-way streets. If I go from 4 minus negative 1, I also then need to go 3 minus negative 3. Okay? If I wanted to go backwards, I could go negative 1 minus 4 and negative 3 minus 3, and I'd get the same answer of 5/6. So that's how the slope formula works. The most common mistakes are messing up a negative number and getting the y's and the x's mixed up. It happens all the time, and I'll make that mistake many times also. Here's another example. Here are our two ordered pairs, negative 1 and 1, 1 and negative 2. Instead of, and we did it with the rise over run, you can make the change in the y values. Remember, y is 1 and negative 2 in this case, divided by the change in the x values, which is negative 1 and 1. And this is a perfect example right here. Before you even start, look at the line. The line's falling from left to right. It's decreasing. So you're going to end up with a negative slope. So make sure that your negatives correspond to that when you get done. So you plug in the numbers. There's the formula. The x's, the change in the x's divided by the changes change in the y's. Excuse me. See, I made that mistake. Divided by the changes in the x's. Negative 2 minus 1, 1 minus negative 1. All right, and you end up with negative 3 over 2, or negative 3 halves. As you recall from negative numbers, that negative sign can be with the numerator, the denominator, or in the middle. It's the same thing. Let's do one more example here. This is the slope formula. You're plugging in numbers. So what's the slope of these right here? So I'm going to give you an example. This first one here is, you can go, my little picture's in the way. As I try to move my picture. We have 3 minus 2 divided by negative 2 minus 3. When we do that, I end up with negative 1/5. 3 minus 2 is 1, but negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5 for negative 1/5. Notice this arrow. This arrow means I went from this number to that number, 3 minus 2, and from negative 2 to 3. If I wanted to go the other way, because it's one-way street only, I could do that. I could go backwards. I could have gone 2 minus 3 and 3 minus negative 2. I would have got the same thing. 3 minus 2 is 1. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. They both are 1/5. So as far as the sub 1s and sub 2s, just make sure you go in the same direction each time, and you're going to be okay. Don't go 2 ways. It's not a 2-way street. Second example, before we start this one, this is a positive slope. So look at the numbers. The x's are 1 and negative 1. The y's are, I did it backwards. See, I made that mistake. Got to be careful. The y's, which go on top, 1 and negative 1. The x's are 2, negative 4. So if I'm going to go this way, it's going to be 1 minus negative 1 over 2 minus negative 4. If I do that, I end up with positive 1/3. Okay, so positive 1/3 is this slope. Negative 1/5 is this slope. The last one here, you can pause this video and try it on your own before I show you. Pause it and try it. Find the ordered pairs. Plug them in for the change in the y or the change in the x, and see if it's correct. Pause it right now. Pause it and try it. You're back. I hope you did okay. The y minus 1 minus so 1 minus negative 1 is, that's this one over here. This is 5 over 2. I didn't get that all done. 1 minus negative 4 is negative 5. Negative 1 minus negative 5 is negative 3 minus negative 5 is 2. This is 2.5. Let me say that again. 1 minus negative 4 is 5. Negative 3 minus negative 5 is 2. This has a slope of 2.5. So that is your brief introduction into the slope of a line using the slope formula. Just ordered pairs, and you can do that. Our next one will be on finding slope from a table.